Microsoft PowerPoint 2007, automatic features and language support. Well, I've got good news and bad news. Well, the good news is, of course, that the automatic features are just rock solid here in 2007 PowerPoint. In fact, we have greater language support from around the world. That's going to help us in our spell check. Now, the bad news is we have lost the style checker, which would take a look at how things looked on the screen and kind of try to give you some suggestions. But I think you'll find that the new functionality still outweighs what we lost in the old functionality. To help auto-magically make your presentation correct and to make sure it looks good, they have spell check, of course, which has been around since the beginning of any of your Office products. Autocorrect, which means, hey, while you're typing, if you fat finger it or type too fast, it will automatically correct certain words as you type. Hey, what if you want to make sure that the text that you have fits the text frame or the text box? Well, auto fit options allows you to do that. And then finally, we're going to take a look at some of the greater support that PowerPoint 2007 and actually all of the Office 2007 series gives us with languages, so with dictionaries and things like that, and thesauruses. What if I want to find a different word to kind of convey what it is I'm trying to say in my text? Well, we're going to show you how to do that. Pretty cool. Now, I know that some of you might be a little leery or scared about automatic features in an Office product because, back in the day when they first started adding some of these, they didn't always work the best, and they could cause some problems. And when you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and open up one that I've created here for my Acme Musical Instruments, you're worried that, hey, you know what? People are watching this. And if they see mistakes or it doesn't look good, that can really affect whether, especially if you're asking for money or for support for something, or you're really trying to get people excited about something, nothing can distract than something that looks bad or is misspelled. That's why, number one, I think that the auto spell or the autocorrect features for spell check are great. And they've really worked really hard. In fact, as we're going to see here, they've even customized some of the ways that the spell check looks at it based upon the usage of the language, and how things. And we'll show you that in just a minute. But understand this, everybody makes mistakes while you're typing, and you want to make sure that these mistakes don't go uncorrected. And so autocorrect is going to help us out. Now, I've created this Acme Musical Instruments Incorporated, the Vision for Tomorrow. I've created a little vision kind of statement here, and I'm going to go before our board of directors as the CEO and kind of really pump on what we're going to be doing. Well, of course, I was in a hurry, or maybe it was a late night, and so what you can do is if you ever want to check anything, you can always click on the Review tab right up here on your Office ribbon, and you'll notice that we have several different things that we can do. We have spelling, we have research, which allows us to look up through dictionaries, encyclopedias, and even certain translations. We'll have our thesaurus. I'll look at that here just a little bit later. Translate. This is kind of neat. With Office 2007, they've really worked hard to build in some basic translations to it. You can, of course, purchase add-ons that allows you to do this, and then even language, which allows you to, check the spelling and grammar of the selected text when you highlight it. Now, spelling, this is just the same. If I go ahead and just click on spelling, watch what happens. Hey, look, this looks really familiar for those of us who have used Office products in the past. It's spell check, and it comes up and it says, all right, I'm going to go through my presentation here. I'll come on up here, right here, and show you right here that on my second slide, it looks like, in the hurry of typing on our vision, I said to provide for our local and global communities opportunities to enjoy musics. Oh, I accidentally fat-fingered, which is a impolite way of saying that I moved my fingers too fast and I typed an additional S. And so what the spell check is going to do is it's going to say, musics really isn't a word. Now, do you want to change it to music apostrophe S? In other words, music owns something. That's music's, the love of music, or you can say that's music's experience. You could do that. So that's kind of a possessive. Or you can say, I think you tried to fat finger it and it's music, no S. Or maybe you were trying to say mosaics. That kind of looks like mosaics. And so it'll go through. Now you have a choice, of course, as the operator of this Office product, 2007 PowerPoint. You can ignore it. Maybe musics is just something that That's a real word now, and that's what you want to use. You can ignore it. And if you use this word more than once in your presentation, you can say, well, anywhere you find this in the presentation, click Ignore All, and it will ignore it, and it will no longer take a look at it. You can also click on the Change, or change them all, like, oh yeah, I probably misspelled that word everywhere, just change it all the time. You can add, where you can say, okay, you know what, this is a new word and I want to make sure it's in the dictionary, musics, so I'll add that to my dictionary, which will be your custom. You can also suggest different words. It'll go through and try, coming up with even some more different words, mosaics. These are the ones that are pretty much the easiest, so you can suggest more. You can autocorrect options. Now, this will turn on the autocorrect options on whether you want to turn that on or off. We'll show you that shortly. And then, of course, you can just close out and stop doing the spell check at any point in time. You'll notice, though, that when you click on the Options button, what that does is it brings it out here to our autocorrect options and our spelling right here under PowerPoint options. Now, the way that you can get to this is not only click on that Options button that we saw there on our dialog box, you can also, I'll go ahead and cancel out here. We'll go ahead and, it says, hey, do you want to resume? We'll go ahead and close. We'll come back to this. You can come up here to the Office button, and down here under PowerPoint options, it'll bring it up. Go ahead and resize it down here. And then over here under Proofing is where you're going to change your autocorrect options, or when you change your spelling in the Microsoft Office programs. Now, here's where we can make some changes. We can ignore any words in an uppercase, because maybe that's an acronym. Anytime you have a misspelled word and it's all uppercase, it might be an acronym like Unite, UNITE, but it's UNYTE because that's the acronym. You can ignore words that have numbers in them. You can ignore any internet and file addresses because, let's face it, sometimes those web URLs have all kinds of different characters in them, and so obviously we can ignore those. You can flag repeated words. These are words that sometimes you'll say the, or out, or but, because you're just typing and maybe you stop for a second and you started typing again. You can enforce the accented uppercase in French. In my version of Office, I've turned on some of the French dictionary, so it says, hey, yeah, you want to enforce that. Do you want to suggest it from the main dictionary only, or do you want to use some of the custom dictionaries that are available? So if I click on custom dictionaries, it says, here's your default, but I can go ahead and add some. I can download them off the internet. They're .dic files that you can get from Office online and other places, and then you can add those. And then that way you can use that, these other custom dictionaries. Legal people, they use a lot of big words with Latin in them. They have a legal custom dictionary that you can download. So then you can do that. Or you can even create a new custom dictionary. So let's say you're in a new field in quantum physics, and you want to create a quantum physics dictionary so that way when you're spelling words, or microbiology. I mean, not too many people know how to spell endoplasmic reticulum. That's actually a part of your cell. So things like that. You can do that. So you can also edit the word list of this custom dictionary just by selecting this. So there's a lot of, remember how I said at the beginning, there's a lot of things that you might want to do with your autocorrect options. We can tweak those. We can change those and make them fit your usability. Okay? So this is where we could do this with the custom dictionaries. You can browse and find different ones. You can remove them. You can change different languages. We'll go ahead and cancel out of that. And then, of course, French modes. I was talking about this. And then when you correct spelling, do you want to check the spelling as you type? And then here it is. Use contextual spelling. Sometimes there are times you might use slang or certain things, and so the way that you spell something in context might be a little different. So you can use contextual spelling. You can select it here. It is not turned on by default, by the way. So you have to, kind of be careful about that and, take a look at it. Okay? So these are just some things we can do when we're taking a look at this. So I'll go ahead and keep the contextual spelling off. I'll click OK, and then I'm back here over on my my PowerPoint presentation, and what you'll see now is all I have to do is click on the spelling, and I'm back to where I'm at. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, I want to change this to music. I click Change, and boop, it does that one, and then it moves on to the next misspelled word that's located in my document. And in this case, it says how to implement I missed one. Sure enough, it says there's only really one suggestion here. It's the word implement. I go ahead and click change, and it'll move on to the next one, museums. Now watch this. You'll notice, I'll go ahead and click close here. You'll notice that that's one way of doing it, and that's running through the whole entire document and finding it and doing the spell check. Or if you, as you type, and let's say I was over here and I typed something like that, or on this slide, you'll notice that all of a sudden this little red squiggly line comes underneath. Now this little red squiggly line says, hey, autocorrect as you type. You know, there's one way of where it'll actually try to fix things for you, but when you are actually typing through, this is constantly on in the background, the spell check, and it will flag these words with the little red squiggly. Remember, just like if you've used Microsoft Word products, I mean, this has been around for a long time, since at least 2000, or even I think 98 or 97 Word, where they put the little squiggly lines underneath. And this is just giving you right-click functionality. So now I can come over here to Museums, right-click on the word, and notice what it does. Number one, I can do a couple of things. I can change this particular word. I can change the font and do some other things. But look at this. It gives me museums. I can ignore all of the words. I can add it to a dictionary, or I can just go ahead and open up the spell check, which will then give me some other suggestions, allow me to ignore, change, and do some other things that we just saw earlier. I'll go ahead and click on museums, and boop, there it is. Just took care of it. Museums. Misspelled it. M-U-S-E-U-M-S. And so this is just the spell check. Now, a lot of people say, Chris, okay, nice. I'm really, happy that you showed us how to use spell check. Well, some people, they forget that this is what it's there for, and that's how to use it. And that's why we want to show this to you and make sure that you're able to use this to the best of your abilities. Now, remember, I said that sometimes the auto correct, it won't allow you to do certain things. So when I say cultural music and instrument displays at local museums, and I'll say where. Now I'm going to watch this. I'm going to say TEH, the, and notice how it changed TEH to the. That's because autocorrect is turned on, so now it automatically corrects, or what they call replace text as you type is turned on. Well, maybe I don't want that turned on. Maybe I just want it to go through and spell check, but I can go back because I might be typing something and it might do that by accident. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. And I'm going to come up here. Remember, we can click over here on our options, PowerPoint options. We open this up. We go to proofing. And right here, autocorrect options. When I click on autocorrect options, it gives me a couple of tabs. Autocorrect, auto format as you type, smart tags. Now, smart tags are kind of interesting. We're not going to go into great detail on them, but just understand, whenever you type certain things into your presentations, you can label it with a smart tag, which will give you a financial symbol, which will then put a smart tag underneath, and it will actually allow you to click on that in a document, and it'll take you out to Microsoft Money's website or your financial websites, and do that. If it's a person's name and you click on it, it'll allow you to look up your contacts in Outlook. Date will ask, if you click on the date, it'll open up in your calendar in Outlook, and then you can see whether you have something going on during that time. And so you choose whether you want to put this in by simply clicking on Embed Smart Tags in this presentation. So that takes care of that. So we'll leave those off. But right here under Autocorrect, you can see, do you want to show the autocorrect's options buttons? Okay, you can turn that on. You can turn that off right here. Correct the two initial capitals, because remember, whenever we're typing, sometimes we're typing real fast and we hold that shift key down just a little too much, and you'll type the first two letters caps, and then the rest is lowercase, and so it'll do that for you. You can capitalize the first letter of sentences. It will automatically do that for you. First letter of table cells, capitalize the name of days like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The accidental use of caps lock key, it'll notice that if your caps lock is on and you hit the shift key for a cap and then the rest starts typing capitals, it'll say, uh-oh, you have the caps lock on and you probably don't want it. You can turn that on or off. And then here's that replace text as you type. And right here you can see it says, all right, there's a whole bunch of things that we can do, and and look at the list of these words. So if I typed in B-E-L-E-I-V-E-D, it would say believed. If in the emigre, it will automatically add, for the French, it will add the accents to it. Enough for enough. Entree for entree. It'll add the actual highlights for those French words that we use. Questions instead of questions. It'll do this for you, and you can, by the way, add something. Let's see. There's I think we don't have it on this one. I have been doing some changes, and one of them is double for double and double for double. Well, I can add another one. What if I typed double? Okay. Notice it doesn't show up down here, and I want to replace that with double. And so now I can click add to that. And when I do that, now that's one of the other ones that I can that will automatically replace for double. So double meaning two. So it can autocorrect. You can also change the auto format. Straight quotes with smart quotes. Fractions with a fractional character. Ordinals with superscripts. It'll move ST to the top. Hyphens with dashes, smiley faces, and arrows with special symbols. We've always been used to these emoticons, is what we call them, where you use it's basically a colon, a dash, and a right parens. And what you've done is now, if you turn your head on the side, it looks like a smiley. Well, now it'll automatically change it to a smiley face. So let me show you how that works. Let me go ahead and close out, and we'll show you. We've made some changes now, right? I click OK, and so now, again, where you say where the double, I'll say, and now watch, I'm going to say double space, and it changed to double. Now before it wouldn't have done that. It would have just put it in. Where the double is set up, and then the other thing that we can do, of course, when we do these is the smiley face. Now if I put up, there's my colon, there's my hyphen, and here's my right parens. And notice how it changes to an actual smiley face. Now watch this. Notice when I roll over something that's been auto-corrected, I get my little autocorrect options little blue underline. Anytime that's happened, see, like there, I changed it to double. Over here, it changed it to a smiley face. I can down-click on it and say, you want to change back to this? Do you want to stop automatically creating special symbols? Or we can go back here to our control autocorrect options, and sure enough, I can turn certain ones off. I'll take off the smiley faces one, okay? So we can do that. And so I click OK. And so now, when I go ahead and hit return, and I go colon, hyphen, and then the right parens, watch what happens. Space, and it doesn't do it. So that's the way that we can control just how our autocorrect functions are working. Now, as good as that is, and that's kind of cool, there's also something else that we can do that helps us with the style of the formatting of our particular PowerPoint presentation, and that's AutoFit. Sometimes your text is not going to fit within a frame or a text box. The text placeholder frame, of course, is like on our title slide over here. Remember, we had our title and then our subtitle. These are pre-built frames. Or you have the text boxes that we add. And sometimes, it doesn't fit. You got a bigger frame. Like, for example, down here, you'll notice when we clicked in there, you got more space. And if you want to make it fit, or if the frame can only be up to here, and then you got pictures down here. What happens when you need to add more text in here? Well, it will actually allow you to auto-fit your text within the frame. Now, the neat thing is there's a couple of different ways how auto-fit will work. So when text doesn't fit in your frame and PowerPoint has to auto-fit, the auto-fit button, options button, is typically going to show up. So if I click on this, you'll notice that, hey, look, over here, this little auto-fit button started showing up, and sometimes it'll even animate over here the first couple times you click over here. And so you'll say to yourself, okay, what do you want to do it? Well, what happens is you can come over here and you can click on the auto fit option, and it'll say, number one, do you want to stop fitting the text to this placeholder? Well, because right now, if I type anything more, it will try to expand and it won't fit the placeholder. It will make the placeholder get bigger instead of fitting the text. Now, what I want to do before I say auto fit the text to the placeholder, I want to show you what's going to happen. Because right now, you'll notice that over here on home that I'm using a Tahoma heading 44 point. Now what it's going to do is I can come over here, click on auto fit options, click auto fit text to placeholder, and watch what happens. Boom. It said, oh yeah? Well, that's easy. We'll just make it smaller. Look at how it's now changed to a 40 point versus a 44 point. Now, if I don't like that, of course, I can say stop fitting the text to the placeholder, and it will bring it back to what I originally placed in. Now, beyond that, you can also control the autocorrect options. Now, this is one of the two different ways that you can do this. Okay. Number one is you're going to say, all right, I can come up here and control the autocorrect options, and it's going to come in here on the things that we're going to do. It says apply as you type. Do you want to do the auto fit title text to the placeholder? Do you want to auto fit body text to the placeholder? Do you want to be able to do that? You can turn that on or off. Now we can choose how PowerPoint handles or auto fits the text in the text boxes, but to do that, remember how I said in our previous CBT nugget how you have your text boxes are actually shapes, right? And so that's where you need to go to format that. So we'll go ahead and click OK here. And we can come up here, and remember you have your shapes and everything, but if I right-click anywhere and I click on Format Shape, it's going to give me options for my text box. And here is where you have your auto-fit options. Do not auto-fit, which means it doesn't fit the text in the text box, but it just lets the text kind of overflow, and it'll actually just go down below where the text box is. You can shrink the text on the overflow. Notice what happened. It already went in there and did it for me. Or you can resize the shape to fit the text. And so it went ahead and created a slightly bigger, or it dropped the box down just a little bit. So this will enlarge the text box to make the text fit inside it. So this is all we have to do. And once you're done, you just go ahead and click the close button, and it will allow you to do that. So in other words, you can do the do not auto fit, and so the autocorrect will, kind of override that and just tell you, hey, by the way, I'm not doing anything, but you might want to change this. That's an option that you might want to do. It also allows you to wrap the text in the shape if you want to on whatever the margins are. In this case, for this particular text box, the layout is 0.1 inches from the left, 0.1 to the right. That's where, when it gets that close, start wrapping. If it's 0.05 inches from the top, then boom, move it down. If it's 0.05 inches from the bottom, either do one of the auto fit, shrink the text, or resize the shape to fit the text, whatever it is that you want to do. So this is how the auto fit is going to work, that allows you to come in here and resize the actual thing that you're going to do. In this case, it's saying, well, hey, we'll just increase the thing. Or you can always be really manual and just say, well, I notice that doesn't fit on one line in the box. Well, you can obviously just go ahead and highlight it and then decrease the font or increase the font right here. I can, decrease the font by 1, and it'll fit into the box there as well. So that's how the auto fit functionality works. One final thing we want to show to you is it's not an automatic feature, but this is where we can go in and we can actually deal with the words themselves and how we can use either the sources or the language options. Now, the reason why I didn't discuss this during the autocorrect and spell check is because this isn't something that's very automatic. You actually have to kind of step outside of your comfort zone to use these particular tools. And that is how to come up with a different word using synonyms, and also how you can make sure that when you're doing your spell check that you have the correct language chosen, and so that way that it's not saying that a word is misspelled because of the languages, okay? So let's say I come down here and I've got my school instrument rentals, and what I'm going to do is click in here and I'm going to type in guitar is a cheap instrument to rent. Now, two things that I'm doing here. Number one is I'm using a different word. Gitarre is in German is the word for guitar. And notice it says, hey, this doesn't look like it's a correct spell. I got my little squiggly line under it. But what I can do is I can right click on it, and it's going to say, all right, you got a spelling problem here. I can see that there's a spelling problem here. So what we can do is we can say, no, that's not true. I'm not sure. So I leave my cursor anywhere within here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Review tab over here and click on Language. Now this says, all right, what languages do you want to use for your spell check? So remember, I said this is not automatically turned on. You have to select these. Currently, I have U.S. English. And if I scroll down here, you'll notice I got a whole bunch of languages here. I told you that they've really gone out of their way for spell check to add more dictionaries. So here, look at this. Here's your English dictionaries. I mean, you've got different types of English, obviously. You've got your Irish English. Oh, wouldn't you be knowing it now? You know, you got your Irish, and then you got your English and Jamaican man. And they all be talking like this, you know. So there might be different words that they use in English in Jamaica and Malaysia, New Zealand. So I've got all of those turned on, and then remember I said I also have my French turned on. But if I scroll down here, you're going to notice something. German, Germany, and there's several different Germans that you can turn on. So what I'm going to do is I can go ahead and say, well, I'm going to mark this selected text as German, and it's still going to check the spelling to see if it's going to work. So once I click OK, it says, that is a correct word in German for guitar. So now it's not going to show up if I type that one. Now the other thing I can do is, notice I say guitar is a cheap instrument to rent. Now, what you might be thinking is like, oh, that might not be the best word to use, cheap. Why is that? Well, because everybody has a certain perception of certain words, because there's many definitions for a word, for example. And the reason why I use cheap is because I had this actually happen to me when I was doing a presentation. I said, well, this is really cheap. And someone at the end of the presentation said, well, why would I want to use it? And I'm like, well, because, if it's so badly put together, and I go, well, no, that's not what I meant by cheap. I meant inexpensive. It's really a high-quality product. Well, in that person's mind, they thought it was a bad thing. So you have to think about those things when you're doing presentations. Well, watch this. If I highlight the word right here for cheap, right, and I right-click on it, it allows me to do synonyms. Now, here's why this is a problem. Take a look at this. Words that are synonymous or the same as cheap, contemptible, despicable, shameful. Oh, okay, I see what's going on. See, someone might have that as a wrong word. Instead, I can use inexpensive, not expensive, low-priced, economical. Oh, economical. Everyone likes the word economical or discounted. So I go ahead and select economical, and now it says my German guitar is an economical instrument to rent. So this is just some of the ways that you can use the proofing and the autocorrect and the autofit tools to really make sure that your presentation is going to communicate the message that you want without distracting people with misspelled words or titles that don't fit their text boxes, or maybe in this case using the wrong word. So we saw a lot of the auto features there that you auto use when you are doing your PowerPoint presentations. Nobody likes misspelled words on a PowerPoint. It just really distracts. So we have our spell check that helps us with that. Hey, do you want the PowerPoint to automatically correct some of those words as you type or change the look and feel of those particular things? Not a problem. Hey, turn your emoticons into smiley faces. Autocorrect will allow you to do that. Auto fit. Hey, if you want to, you have a text frame and you have a picture underneath it and you can't allow that frame to go any bigger or grow, you can change the auto fit functionality that will then shrink the text, or maybe allow it to bleed over, or you can do a couple other things that will help make it sure it fits in that place that you put it. And then finally, we saw whether you speak German, Chinese, French, Spanish, whatever it is, we have greater language support, not only in our spell check, but also when we're looking for different words that we want to use. And if you need to use a synonym, well, hey, our thesauruses are pretty in-depth, and we can find that right word that we're looking for our presentation. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.